Good evening, everybody. Welcome to LongShots TV. We got a very special edition. Everybody knows that the World Series is starting tonight in just about a half an hour from now, and we're bringing in our guest handicapper CJ the Razor tonight. We're going to talk about the World Series and get his thoughts on what we're going to see throughout this series. It's a historic series, guys. Um, you'll probably never see another history or historical series like this as long as you live again. So pay close attention to it tonight. How you doing tonight, CJ?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. We got to get our stuff together here and talk about some World Series baseball. This is going to be exciting. I've got goosebumps just waiting for it. I can't wait. I'm torn because at the beginning of the year, CJ, I predicted the Cubs to win the World Series. So I got that going for me. However, I'm a Ohio native and like the Indians as well, and kind of torn to see them lose as well because we got a lot of history here. We got 1908, 1948. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. No matter what team you cheer for or whether you like these teams or not, I kind of feel like this is just really good for baseball, you know?
Yeah.
No matter who you're a fan of, I think anyone can appreciate this matchup here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that honestly they should have put this game on first game on last night. I think more people would have watched this game than the Monday Night Football game, honestly. That being said, tonight we've got John Lester, 19-5, going up against Corey Kluber at 18-9 for the season. CJ, what do you see out of these two pitchers tonight?
Well, I see a lot of unfamiliarity, you know? Even though Lester has pitched in the AL for a significant portion of his career, the Cleveland Indians haven't seen a whole much of him apart from Rajay Davis.
Right.
There's not really a whole lot of sample to go off. And, and on the other side, with Corey Kluber, the Cubs, they've barely ever faced him as a team. So,
Right.
it's a lot of things, I guess, that we don't know about and not really sure how they're going to match up against each other. But it's going to be interesting. I think both will be looking to test the waters and, kind of get a read on how these guys are going to come out. And it's just going to be really interesting to see how either pitcher kind of reacts to what happens throughout the game. If one were to give up a run, how they would respond to that, or just kind of the approach that they come into this game with here. Because pretty much all they can go off is, more or less scouting, not too much hands-on from, firsthand experience. So
Right.
it'll be great to see how they come out here today.
Yeah, I was watching an interview earlier. I forget who they were talking to, but one of the former players of Joe Madden, and he was saying that Lester is going to be doing something a little bit different tonight against the Cleveland Indians. Do you have any idea of what maybe that meant? I mean, is he changing up his pitches, or what do you take of that, CJ?
You know, it's going to be real tough to say because the Indians didn't really give anybody a lot to work with last game. They were kind of not really hitting the ball too well. They got through mainly more so on their pitching, but a lot of the games were very low scoring. I think they were hitting 188 that series,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just a team of mystery right now. There's not a lot known about. There's not a lot you can even scout from the last series. You can try and do what was working with some of those breaking balls and whatnot, but I don't really know what to expect here. I know Lester, he's got a wide assortment of pitches. He might be looking to stay away from the four seam fastball maybe a little bit more and
Mm-hmm.
focus more on the off speed pitches. And being a left hander, he's probably fully aware of the fact that the Indians have hit left handed pitchers pretty well all year. So, but this is not just an ordinary lefty.
Right.
This is most likely the Cy Young winner this year. So, his approach, I think, would have to be a play by ear kind of approach. Whatever pitches are working,
Right.
he might try to attack the strike zone early and then kind of lean towards more of his more of the breaking ball later on and more of the off-speed pitches. But I guess time will tell, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I also heard it said in a different interview that Cleveland, if they get on base, they do plan on running on Lester. I guess Lester's not been exactly good at holding runners on base, so look for them to run often if they get on. Let's see, longtime American leaguer John Lester is 7-1 with a 3.03 ERA in 15 career starts against Cleveland. Kluber has made the most of his first career appearances in the postseason, posting a .98 ERA in his three starts, including two scoreless outings this October. So obviously, you're talking about two solid pitchers that have great numbers. So the question I have for you, CJ, and I know a lot of people are watching this, and this is what they're going to want to know: do you see this game staying under 6.5?
Well, based on some of the numbers, especially the one that you've thrown out here, it definitely seems logical that it would be a low-scoring game. I mean, you look at Cleveland's bullpen; they've been lights out all playoffs. You kind of expect Lester to go deep enough where the better part of the bullpen can come in for the Cubs as well. So I would say yes, but the interesting story here is how Corey Kluber is going to be able to handle this because,
Yeah.
you could see a little bit of falter in this last game. And mind you, he was on short rest, but, just that could be an indication of something. It might not be an indication of anything, but, it just will depend on how he's going to come out. We know John Lester has that playoff experience.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing we do know about the Cubs is that they're not particularly good against the curveball. And so far this season, Kluber has thrown the curveball more than he has any other season, which is at about a 19% rate. So
Right.
what I would say is you would expect to see more of that this game. And, kind of just trying to throw the Cubs off early. But, if both pitchers pitch to what they're capable of, I think this game can very easily stay under, especially since they're both, there's that concept of unfamiliarity and, they don't play each other too often. So I can definitely see this being a low scoring game.
Okay, yeah, I can too. Actually, when I was doing the research on this, I actually were in the beginning was leaning towards the over in this because historically, when these two teams match up, they match up on the over. But this is a World Series games. You can't hardly buck the trend when it comes to that. Also, an interesting note, CJ, is the Cubs actually interjected Kyle Schwarber into the lineup tonight, little maybe prematurely from injury.
I guess time will tell with that, but the decision does make sense because, with the whole DH situation and something the Cubs have not been, they have not really been in this situation, obviously, since the playoffs started. So somebody's got to go in there. And
Right.
why not give him a shot? He showed pretty good power numbers last year, and I know he hasn't played a game, but it's a good spot to get an idea, try to get his confidence back. He's not going to have any field duties, so if you're going to throw him in at any point, I mean, this would be the time to do it.
Right. I agree. It was a pretty gutsy move though to try and start him at this point, but like you said, time will tell. Uh, Gonna give a shout out there to Ace Man Chris and to Juan who are watching the show. You guys have any questions, just shoot them over and we'll get them answered for you. Really appreciate you watching, along with all of our other viewers. If you want to chime in at any time, we'd really appreciate it. Ask us some questions. That's what it's all about. CJ, and well, I guess the next question logically to ask is, who do you see coming out on top tonight?
Logically, I mean, I would have to go with the Cleveland Indians. There's just a lot of splits in their favor here. They do hit lefties pretty well. Of the two pitchers, they've seen Lester a lot more than the Cubs have seen Kluber. They're well rested, but again, the playoffs, it's not always about logic. I mean,
Right.
you could make a counter argument about the amount of rest that the Indians have had, but I think they've used this time well to try and fix what wasn't working against Toronto in terms of offense.
Right.
and you can expect them to be a bit more patient, a bit more probably hitting the balls that kind of stunned them when they were playing against Toronto. So it's logically I would go with the Indians, but we've said this before about the Cubs with their.
Right.
It just seems like a magical season. They get those late runs, they get those runs when they matter, and just because of that, this has caused me to really just sit back and watch this first game and not really make a
Right.
you know
Makes
just kind of
sense.
observe it and then make a play when I see fit later on in the
Yeah.
series.
Well, you've got so much history here. I mean, you're talking about two franchises that have over 50 years since they've been there, all of a sudden being thrown together. And I also heard somebody earlier today point out the fact that um, it was 1908 for the Cubs uh, and 1948 for the Indians. This is 2016. If you double the 108, you get 2016. Is that an omen? I thought that was
Yeah,
interesting.
there's a lot of people are having fun with this. That's for sure. I seen another one about the last time either of these teams won a World Series, just things that didn't exist, and the lists that people come up with they're just hilarious. Like I think we've had some time here. A lot of people, it's a huge matchup, and a lot of people are just having a lot of fun. And with this social media, you can see a lot of these quirky little trends and stuff people come up with. It's amazing sometimes.
Yeah, Aceman Chris says I'm on the Cubs to take the series, but I'd like to see the Indians win tonight to give the Cubs a little hype. Fellas, could we get a little background on the coaches? No problem, Juan. CJ, you want to give us a little background on Terry Francona?
Well, I mean, these are two of the best coaches in the majors right now, and the management has been amazing. Especially, I feel more so with the Indians, just because they're coming in as I don't want to say underdogs, but I don't think anybody expected them to make it this far.
Right.
And just the way that he's been able to take advantage of certain situations, putting the rookie in the elimination game, and just kind of firing everybody up so that everybody's confident. I mean, I think a lot of props to Francona for that.
Right.
And I mean, Joe Madden, he's just Madden at his finest. He's just doing what needs to be done. I think the team's taking care of the rest, and it's yeah. I mean, these are two of the best managers, and
Right.
they both deserve to be here right now.
What do you see, if anything, special that either one of these coaches may do to give their team a little bit of an edge?
That's a tough question. I mean, that really comes down to what happens throughout the game, I guess. I think both of them are very situational coaches,
Mm-hmm.
and they do things according to what's going on. And I think the bullpen management, we might see some surprises, especially on Cleveland's side, just depending on what happens. I mean, they're still a little thin in terms of starting pitching. We're not really sure how Salazar's going to come out here,
Mm-hmm.
and if it comes down to management, I think we might see some interesting stuff in the bullpen. I'm not going to be able to forecast what. I mean, we might see Andrew Miller, take on more innings, or Cody Allen take on more innings, but
Right.
I guess it's just kind of a play-by-ear kind of thing. Who knows? I mean, the starters might just come out and be lights out the whole way. So
Right.
it's just we'll have to find out here.
And that could very well be. In game two, Jake Arrieta is going up against Bauer. And in game three, Tomlin against Hendricks. I'm really surprised, CJ, that Hendricks, uh, I know that would have been, what, 4 days? I'm kind of surprised that the Cubs didn't start Hendricks. I mean, keeping that momentum going. I mean, he was lights out. He had he didn't throw a lot of pitches. It was under 100, I believe. And I do believe it was 4 days since the clinch. So why wouldn't why wouldn't he go with Hendricks on that in this situation?
Well, I think you just got to go with the rhythm of what everyone's used to pitching. You don't really want anyone sitting for too long. You don't want anyone outside of their normal schedule. You kind of have to keep things within check. And I think if you look at perception, I mean, I think the Cubs have the better pitching matchup throughout the whole series.
Right.
Starting pitching wise. So I don't think it really matters who goes where. But
Okay.
you just have to kind of keep the, I want to say biological clock. Maybe that's not the right term, but you have to keep them in the rhythm that they're used to already.
Right.
And I think you shouldn't change it up, unless it's really necessary.
Right.
I mean, you got different circumstances like with Baumgartner a couple of years ago, and even Kershaw here. But if everyone's doing well, and you just got to keep the rhythm of the order going.
Right. Makes sense. So, who do you think benefits the most out of the win?
Out of the last series win here.
Yeah. Well, out of the overall, let's say if Cubs or the Indians win the World Series, obviously the winning team, but I mean, which city is what I'm trying to get to benefits the most out of the World Series win?
Oh, you got to go with the century-long drought with the Chicago Cubs. I mean, they've had such a great season so far. It'd be a major letdown if they, didn't finish the job here, and it'd be a letdown to a lot of their lifelong fans. I think I think the city of Chicago would be huge. I mean, don't get me wrong, Cleveland. If they win 2 championships this year, it's going to be just amazing for the city. But
Yeah.
for the just the fact that they've been in that long of a drought, the Chicago Cubs, and they've got so many fans that have been loyal to them throughout this whole drought. I think that city's gonna it's really gonna be something special.
Yeah, I believe so too. Might as well give a little shout out to Brian Perk. He's a Cleveland boy. He's over there probably. I don't know if he's at the game. He's got a family and some young kids, so maybe he would. But Ace Man Chris wants to know: would winner of Game One make a difference in this series? What do you think, CJ?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, game one by no means determines who's going to win the series, but it creates some decisions to be made. It's going to put teams in certain positions, certain advantages, and I mean, if the Cubs win this game, they're going to have home advantage. So,
Right.
that's one factor right there. I mean, but either way, whoever wins this game is going to have a bit of leeway, and I mean that might not always work to their favor, but it's definitely going to affect the way things play out later on for sure.
Okay. Um, in terms of wins and losses, uh, if let's say Chicago and or Cleveland gets up the first two games, what do we see happening the rest of the series? Is that going to be a big letdown, or is this going to be a fight? Do you see this thing going to 7 games?
Well, the thing is, I know a lot of people they like to judge the series on how close it is based on how many games it's gone. But the fact is, I mean, the series could be close and it could be quick.
Right.
Just if they're all one run games that come down to the ninth, it's still going to be a close series, even if it's a sweep. So it's kind of hard to say who's gonna whether that's going to be a determining factor, whether the series is going to be close in that sense, or if it's going to go the distance as in going 7 games.
Mm-hmm.
But I do expect us to see at least 6 here. I think both these teams have showed their resiliency, and they're going to find a way to rebound if they lose the game. But that's not to say that it can't be a close series and a quick one.
Okay. And one last question on this while we're on it. Who do you see as the potential MVPs coming from both sides?
Well, I got to say Andrew Miller is going to be in that conversation. I mean, he's taken a bulk of innings when they need him the most. He's been clutch in that sense, and if Cleveland's to win it, I think they're going to need a lot out of him too. So for Cleveland, I'm going to say Andrew Miller.
Okay.
For the Chicago Cubs, that's a tough one for the Cubs. I mean, everybody's kind of, the whole infield's playing very well. I would not be surprised if Javier Baez won it again, because he just seems to be right in the zone right now. But honestly, it could be any one of them in there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's jump over. CJ, well, you wanted to talk a little bit of hockey tonight. We've got hockey in full swing now. Both you and I are crushing the books in hockey. Right now, I am 12-6 on the year. And what's your record right now?
I'm up 10 units on the season, right on par and where I want to be.
All right.
I've told this to my clients as well that the goal here is to try and profit 10 to 12 units every 2 weeks per sport. So it's par for the course. I mean, tomorrow is going to be the 2 week mark of the season.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's been good so far. It's been a good read, and
Yeah.
I've been pretty dialed in with this NHL season.
Yeah, and we're starting to see a little bit about which teams are going to be coming out of the mix, or at least going strong the first part of the season, and some good indicators there. Uh, you wanted to talk specifically about goal scorers?
Well, yeah, more so the scoring list at the moment. Like
Hmm.
some of the certain features of it that may be surprising here.
Okay.
And I'm going to start with the Chicago Blackhawks. I mean, we all know they're a contender. Some might argue they're on their way down, but I don't really think so. I know they've had a bit of a rough start to the season. Um, since the last time we talked, they're 1-2, and they haven't really played this week. They haven't really played anyone of their kind of caliber from what's expected.
Right.
But they're struggling a little bit, and their penalty kill is really really struggling a bit. But a couple of their highlights so far this season is that they're getting scoring from guys that are not named Patrick Kane or Jonathan Toews here.
Right.
And right now, Artem Anisimov is tied for first in points, and that's kind of surprising.
Yeah.
That it's Artem Anisimov that's first in points, and Richard Panik that has 6 goals for them this year, and those are the 2 leading scorers on Chicago at this point.
Wow.
So it
Yeah.
kind of goes to show how good their development is, and just how good they are as a team.
Yeah. Actually, one of our viewers said, "Hope the Blackhawks look good this season." Well, they're starting off, a little bit slow, but they'll gel. I think, CJ, a lot of these teams have so many young players incorporated in the new lineups, and the lineups being switched around, so to speak, that it's going to take time, obviously, for these teams to gel and really show who they are. So hopefully that'll start to show itself here real shortly. You Was there any other surprises there in scoring?
The other one that I see on here that I felt was kind of significant here was Shea Weber. Getting into his new team in Montreal. A lot of people are saying he's on his way down. He's getting too old. He's slowing down, and I mean they have good reason to believe that with 3 of his last seasons being a minus rating,
Right.
which usually he's a pretty solid defenseman, if anything. But this year he leads the NHL in plus and minus right now at 10,
Mm-hmm.
and he has 7 points, 2 goals, and 5 assists in the 6 games that he's played for Montreal. So he seems to be on a mission here to kind of prove the naysayers wrong, and he's fitting in very nicely in Montreal right now. So
Right.
that's something that stood out to me here in terms of player performances so far this season.
Awesome.
And don't get me wrong, it's still early. I don't expect him to keep up this pace and get 80
Right.
points, but I think he's on a mission here. He's trying to show everyone that he still got it.
Definitely, definitely. So, what about those Canadian teams this year?
Yeah, it kind of feels like with last year and none of them making the playoffs. It kind of feels like they took it to heart here.
Yeah.
Everyone talks about how Canada is, the birthplace of hockey, and it's kind of embarrassing when not a Canadian team makes the playoffs.
Right.
And so far we've had 3 Canadian teams come out to a really, really strong start, and they're 1, 2, and 3 right now in the standings.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you got the Edmonton Oilers that, after about a decade of failure and the rebuilding process, going through numerous speed bumps, they seem to at least be on track for now. You got the Vancouver Canucks, who were ranked to be last place this year by many people,
Yeah.
and they're off to a 4-1. They're off to 9 points to start the season.
Yeah,
And then
there's
you got
a
the
team
Montreal
surprised
Canadiens.
me a little bit was the Canucks. I did not expect them to start out the way they did, and they've definitely surprised me. So, maybe that holds for a while, and we'll see.
Yeah, I don't think anyone expected that, especially with the decline of that team overall. But they have come back strong in the third periods in a lot of these games, and they're off to a good start. So we'll see what happens with them. And I mean, Montreal, I kind of feel like they were in the same position last year.
Hmm.
And as long as their goalie's healthy, they're a good team to start the season. So that's another one to look out for to see if they can keep that up.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so early in the season, CJ, what's your predictions so far as maybe a few of the teams that you definitely see have the potential to make it to the playoffs this year?
Well, I think the Montreal Canadiens are gonna, obviously not keep up this rate, but I think they're gonna finish near the top of the East here. And
Okay,
I guess I'm an Edmonton Oilers fan. I'd like to see them make the playoffs, but I'm also realistic here, and
right,
they got some work to do, but
sure,
um, whether they sneak in or not will kind of be dependent on how the rest of the division does, I guess.
all right. Well, see how this season plays out. It's going to be an exciting one for sure. Keep your eyes peeled. We'll be doing more on hockey as the season goes along with CJ on LongShots TV. And Andy Wright says, I can't wait to see who won the October competition giveaway. We will, let's see, today is the 25th. So the competition actually ends on the 31st, is the last day of the month. And we will announce it the next show after the 31st. I'm not sure what day that falls on, so whatever day that is, that very next show, we will announce the winner of the competition for the 1 week of premium plays from LongShots TV. LongShots TV's plays right now are 3-1 on the season. We didn't have one last week due to actually we had a power outage and couldn't get up and running. So but CJ, it's always fun to talk to you. Look forward to doing more shows with you and having everybody on. We're going to try and do a roundtable with you, Donnie Rightside, uh, I think Travis, and one other person, maybe Lance, and talk about football and sports in general, the NBA season, hockey season, and just have a good time. Maybe beating each other up a little bit on the our favorite teams. What other content are we going to be seeing in the Long Shots lineup? Well, Dan, we're going to have a lot of stuff coming up. Believe it or not, we have a lot of things in the planning, a lot of things in the works already. Uh, Obviously, every sport, we are going to have Christopher Morrison on the show to do an NBA show. We're going to start that. Hopefully this Friday. We had planned on doing it last Friday, but it didn't work out again because of the power outage. So this coming Friday, I believe at 8 o'clock, we will be doing an NBA kickoff show with Chris Morrison, and then 9 o'clock we'll be doing the primary show with Donnie Rightside. And then on the weekend, we will have at least one show, and then Monday night again with CJ. Uh, and hopefully, we'll get that one more show in for postseason baseball, World Series, and then talk some more hockey with that. And lucky Lance Williams says, nice. So it's always going to be fun, Lance. I hear you there, brother. So we're going to have a lot of fun, especially when we do the roundtable. You all are going to want to tune in for that. The roundtable is going to be good because I guarantee you guys, just because we're handicappers and just because we work for the same guy, we don't always agree on everything. So you're going to see a lot of so-called punches being thrown, and we're going to have a lot of fun. I guarantee you. So you're going to want to join in, ask your questions, maybe even throw some questions out there that could start us, kibitzing a little bit. And who knows, you might get to see a little bit of a verbal throwdown. We want to make it fun and interesting here on Long Shot. So, CJ, it's been great tonight. Do you have any parting thoughts or anything that you want to pass along?
Nope, that's going to be it for today. But it was a pleasure to be on the show as always.
All right. Yep. Look forward to it again soon. And thanks, Alex, for loving the show. And make sure you follow us, guys, on the show. And tell all your friends, please. Tell them to come over, like the show, follow the channel, please. That's very important to us. And you can also see us over on YouTube as well. We stream live to many, many locations. and we want everybody to join in on the show. We want to have a lot of fun, get some interesting guests on, and we're working very hard to bring some celebrity athletes in and interview them as well. So, all right, CJ, you guys can see CJ at trendbetting.com. You can also get a hold of CJ at CJ the Razor to get his picks. And trust me, you're going to want to get on his picks for the NHL season because he's money. All right. That's the show for tonight, guys. Look forward to talking to you next time on LongShots TV. Take a shot with LongShots. We are the game. Even get to especially with the interaction. That makes it real. That makes it cool.